This is what you can do about taking control of your health. A podcast for people interested in understanding why we get sick, as well as in learning how to create bodies that are healthy, strong, fit, and disease resistant. I am your host, Sean McClendon. I'm a certified personal trainer, an author, and a health and fitness enthusiast. Thank you for joining me today. Okay. All right. So, what are we going to talk about in this episode? In this episode, we are going to talk about how I got rid of GERD, GERD, also known as gastroesophageal reflux disorder. I think that's how you say it. I'll look it up in a second. But anyhow, before we get into that, my featured book for today is my book called 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health. It's my fat loss workbook. And basically, you can have the best exercise routine in the world, but if your diet is off, you can guarantee one thing: you will not see results from your exercise. So in 8 weeks to transform your diet and your health, I've created an easy to follow set of eating habits for you to adopt over 8 weeks to boost your health, promote fat loss, and get the most out of your exercise regimen. When you finish this workbook, you will finally know how to eat to get results. So make sure you get your copy. I'm going to put a link in the description so that you can see where to buy this. This is not on Amazon. It's on a platform called Lulu. But again, this is a fat loss workbook. You can take notes in there. You can mark off the days as you complete them, and you'll get the best results when you pair this with your exercise routine. Okay? Because if you want to see results in your body and your diet is not on point, or the way that you eat is still bad, then again, forget results. Okay. All right. So make sure you get your copy of the book. Let's go ahead and get into this episode: how I got rid of GERD. So now another, if you're not familiar with GERD, it's also called indigestion. And let me see if I can go ahead and look up the name of the of this disorder so I can say it right. Yeah, gastroesophageal reflux disease. Okay. All right. So this has been a while ago now. I can't remember exactly when it happened. This happened to me twice, but it's been a few years when it first happened. So basically, I had heard of GERD and maybe seen commercials about it, maybe like Pepto-Bismol commercials and things like that. But I never experienced anything like this. But let's just cut to the chase. So there was a period I was going to work, going to my job, and there was a period of time where I would notice myself kind of start to feel just a little nauseous. It wasn't strong, but it was noticeable, and it was enough for me to kind of like be like, what is that? Like I'd be walking around, and then I just kind of realized that I kind of felt like an undercurrent of nausea. And it was a little concerning to me because I knew that's not normal. Ever. Like I never experienced anything like this, kind of walking around in the day is normal, and then you just kind of feel a little sick to your stomach. So anyhow, I just kind of noted it in my mind and just kind of kept on about everything. And this went on for a while, off and on, and I started to notice it a little bit more as days went on, but again, didn't pay much attention to it until there was a night I remember I went to bed, and I think I felt more nausea that day. And I think I was still able to eat some, but I went to bed and whatnot. And all of a sudden I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had this really strong, and you can't see where my hand is because of where my microphone is, and my chair is not high enough. But like right below my pectoral muscles, like where my sternum is, I felt this really, really strong. It wasn't pain so much of as it was pressure, but it felt bad, and I felt really, really nauseous and just sick. And so there was some sort of pain. I just don't recall my chest hurting, but I just felt really nauseous, and I felt very uncomfortable, and I was worried. It just woke me up, and I was like, oh, I was moaning and I got up and I was kind of heaving, like I had to, throw up, but nothing was coming out, and just felt terrible. And so I finally was able to lay down after a long time. I was able to kind of lay back down and I think get some semblance of sleep. But when I woke up, of course, I was worried. I was like not wanting to eat at all. I won't say I wasn't wanting to eat. It's like I really couldn't eat. I had no real appetite. And this went on for a while. Like, to be honest, it went on for over a week. I want to say a week and a half, probably even about 2 weeks, where I wasn't really eating a whole lot because I was just so nauseous. I would try to, but I mostly drank like tea. I was drinking ginger tea, because ginger, real ginger, is good for, helping to settle your stomach and stuff like that. So, but I was like trying to eat and couldn't really eat and just drinking tea and liquids. And, I lost about 10 pounds and my wife was kind of like, like, Sean, you good? And ultimately I was like, okay, well, I need to go and get checked out and kind of see what in the world was going on. And that was bothering me a lot too. Yeah, it was just bothering me. I didn't want to go to the doctor. I don't necessarily care for the doctor per se, but like with that, I was like, let me just go ahead and go. So I remember I went and I happened to drop by my parents' house. Again, I didn't know what was going on. And I was trying not to do too much of internet searching because that searching the internet can be something to immediately kind of cause you to think worst case scenario. So, but I was already worried. And so anyhow, I went by my parents' house because I think I was dropping one of my kids off by my parents' house. And I was headed from there to the doctor's office. And I remember talking to my dad, and my dad said, "Oh yeah, that kind of sounds like GERD." And he explained to me that he had experienced that, and he described some things, and it largely sounded like what I had experienced. And so I was like, So that put a little thought in my mind, even gave me a little bit of peace. So anyhow, long story short, I went to the family health center in my area and got checked out, and they pretty much said the same thing. Sounds like GERD, otherwise known as indigestion. And they gave me some recommendations, and I think that they even gave me like something to some suggestions for medicine to take and all of that kind of stuff. And so, but anyhow, the very interesting thing about that was that the moment I finished the appointment, I was very hungry. And so I left, and I'm mentioning that for a reason. So I left, and I went ahead and got something to eat and ate great. Well, the meal I got wasn't very good. Just being transparent, I think I got Chick-fil-A that day. But I'm saying I ate a good amount of food. Just writing a note for me to talk about. Now, so I wanted to talk about this because one of the things that I'm really wanting to emphasize on this podcast is like getting an understanding of why we get sick, why we deal with different type of things. Because I definitely am a believer that everything has a reason. Everything. I don't think that anything in this world that God created is just happenstance or chance. I feel like we may not understand all the time why things happen, but I don't think that means that it's just random. It might be random seeming to us. So that said, I believe that a lot of times when we deal with illnesses, there's a very specific reason why we're dealing with it. There's something very specific that led to it. And, it's good to try to like find out, retrace one's steps and kind of see so you can avoid it, recover from it, all that type of stuff. So the first thing I wanted to say is me dealing with nausea, like random kind of like trace bouts of mild nausea at my job was my body telling me something was wrong. And I remember whenever I really started to notice it, immediately I realized in my mind, I felt this a little bit recently, but I just kind of brushed it off. But I realized my body had been telling me for a while that, okay, something is kind of off with your digestion. Something is. But again, the thing is, I kind of ignored it. I ignored it because it did seem abnormal, but it was so subtle. It was just kind of like, oh, well, that's nothing. So that's one of the things I really want to emphasize. My body was telling me that, and I think that's something really, really important to emphasize for you. Your body is telling you things all the time. Even if it's something as simple as feeling cold because it's cold outside, or feeling, I don't know, anything. Your body's constantly telling you different types of things. And in our society, we kind of have a tendency to ignore what our bodies are telling us because of the task at hand. Because there's something to be done, and it's more, quote, important to do that thing than to pay attention to whatever natural stuff your body's telling you. I think that we also have a way in Western culture of kind of ignoring stuff that kind of seems, as they say, woo woo, but it's not really. It just is what it is. But I think sometimes in Western culture we have a tendency to ignore natural processes and natural occurrences and things that show that our bodies are these organic machines that are connected to the world around us. They come from the world around us and are connected to it. And I get it why it seems kind of weird sometimes, but I do think that to our detriment, we ignore a lot of stuff. Like the fact that, even for example, that our bodies run off our bodies' clocks are set by the sun, and different things happening all around us, like, I don't know much about grounding, but I don't doubt that there's something to grounding, like where you walk with bare feet on the ground and different things like that. We just don't put a whole lot into those type of things. But I think we need to stop doing that because we kind of like get so caught up in what we create as humans that we forget that we're just as much a part of everything as the animals and plants are. So I digress. So anyhow, my body was telling me that something was going on back then, but I was ignoring that. The next thing I wanted to say, so I've already shared the actual experience in the doctor's office experience. When I went to the doctor, they confirmed what I had heard from my dad, that it was GERD. And I don't recall much of what they told me along the lifestyle side of things. Whoever the doctor was, I think they may have said something, but I honestly can't really remember what. But a lot of times when I go to the doctor, it's like I use what I hear for myself to kind of help me to make better choices and things like that, because of the fact that, like I always say, my doctor's not responsible for my health. I am. So it, everything kind of starts with me, so any sort of medicine recommendations and whatnot, personally, I don't always opt for those type of things. And I'm not telling you to not do that. I'm not telling you that. I'm saying for me, the approach I tend to take is trying to retrace my steps and kind of see, again, what led to this. Like, what's the issue? Like, I don't assume that my body is broken and that now I need some sort of something to kind of like take for the rest of my life. Because a lot of times that may not necessarily be the case. Again, don't take what I'm saying and just say, well, I'm doing this because Sean said I need to do this. I hadn't told you to do anything. I'm telling you my own personal approach, because I think it's really important to really understand what leads to stuff. Okay. So yeah. So what actually led to this? So when I was able to really think about my lifestyle and kind of connect the dots, I saw that what led to me experiencing GERD, specifically for me, more than anything, was eating late and then going to bed too soon after I had eaten a heavy meal late at night. And I know that it's like I retraced my lifestyle, and that's what I found. And you can look it up and see that people say sometimes that can be a cause. Cause I think my work shift had changed, and I was doing a lot more eating late at night and eating big meals. Cause I mean, hey, I was hungry, right? And so I was eating these big meals, and then I had to get up in the bed so I could get up early in the morning the next day to work on whatever. Because I think I was working like the evening shift, and so I was still eating heavy late, and it caught up with me. It caught up. So let me just put in like a pause there and tell you it matters whether or not you eat late for many, many different reasons. Of course, here, when you eat late, the thing is your body, it's supposed to be focusing on repairing and rejuvenating and all that type of stuff at night. And everything else really kind of slows down. When you eat, anytime you eat, a lot of blood flow and a whole lot of activity is happening in your digestive system. But that's not the type of thing that's supposed to be happening at night. So you have all this activity going on, you lay down on it, and you start getting stomach acid to come up your esophagus. And of course, it's not really supposed to be in there. So that's what causes the pressure and the burning. And, because it could be, as you're laying down, slipping up through your, you have like a flap at the bottom of your esophagus that separates it kind of from your stomach. And so those digestive liquids are churning and can come up through there and lead to what we call GERD or indigestion. So eating late is a cause of that. Now just hear what I'm saying. I'm not discouraging you from taking medication. But what I do want to say is, if you deal with GERD and you eat right before you go to bed, that is a big reason that it happens, period. So if you still decide to take medication and continue to eat late, that's your decision. But what I will tell you is that that's not dealing with the root cause. It's not. It's allowing you to kind of continue bad habits, which, even though you have something that keeps you from experiencing the effects of GERD, it's still going to cause problems down the road. So you might as well deal with the root cause of your digestive issue. When I dealt with it, I knew exactly what it was. And I experienced it once more, maybe like a couple of years after that episode. But I immediately knew, Sean, you're eating too late again. You're doing too much of this heavy meals at late at night type of deal. And so I was able to just kind of like immediately like just get right. So yeah. And then the other point I wanted to make here is when I left the doctor's office and I was immediately hungry again. I also believe that another big reason I was dealing with GERD is because of my emotional state. So not necessarily with me experiencing those initial traces of GERD, but especially when I had that strong episode that night and I was worried and everything, it's like my appetite was like gone. It was gone. And so it made everything worse. But once the fear and all that stuff lifted, my appetite was restored. Now, from personal research, I have also learned, and make sure you look this up yourself, your emotional state is very much, it can greatly influence the state of your digestion. So apparently there are a lot of nerve endings in your like abdomen, kind of around your stomach and your intestines and all of that type of stuff. A lot of nerve endings. Some people say the abdomen, like where your digestive system is like a second brain, because it's so many nerve endings and so much kind of like, I think what they call it, central nervous system activity down there or something. I don't have all those kind of details in front of me, but your gut is called even the second brain because it's so much nervous system related activity that goes on down there. So that's why a lot of times people who have very kind of like strong emotions a lot, like, especially negative emotions, a lot of times they deal with digestive issues. So that's something to really consider. If you have a lot of issues with digestion and you also have a lot of issues with fear and maybe anger and worry and anxiety and stuff like that, dealing with those negative emotions will help you with your digestion because of the way we're made, because of the nerve endings and all of that type of stuff. So that's why I wanted to say that, because there's really no other explanation for me all of a sudden being able to eat after almost 2 weeks of not being able to eat. And then it was kind of like, oh, almost like there was a storm that instantly ended, and it was like the other stuff had never happened. So again, what I want to say is this is what I noticed for me. As far as like why I was dealing with GERD, it was late eating and my emotional state. So I learned that though by paying attention to what my body was telling me. Now, from what I've heard, other causes can include, like eating too much of like heavy, greasy foods, and acidic foods and just junk food in general. That can lead to indigestion and whatnot. But timing of your meals, it really does matter. So don't eat too late at night. My goal has been to eat no later than 8:30. It's gonna be earlier than that. Like honestly, I want to get to like 8 o'clock, perhaps even earlier than that. But just for the sake of taking steps and whatnot, and trying to navigate having a family and kids and all that kind of stuff. Right now, 8:30 is that's good for me. But then also watch your emotional state and understand that your emotions and whatnot are very much tied to the function of your digestive system. Again, I've seen that in research, and I've also experienced it personally. Okay, so hopefully, if you've dealt with GERD or whatever, this is enlightening to you. Listen to yourself. Listen to your body. Don't distrust what your body is telling you. Learn to listen to your body, because you would be surprised how much your body is giving you the keys to why you're dealing with something. Okay. All right. So that does it for this episode. If you found it helpful, make sure you share it with a friend. Maybe you have a friend who's dealt with indigestion, and you can send them this episode of the podcast to help them to listen to their body and maybe figure out an action plan. So share it with them. Make sure you like this episode, subscribe to this podcast. Don't forget to get your copy of 8 Weeks to Transform Your Diet and Your Health. The description again is below in the description of this podcast episode. Okay. Now I'm supposed to say this at the beginning, but I didn't. But I say it now. Just remember my disclaimer that it's information on this podcast. It's based on personal research and opinion, and it's not meant to be a substitute for advice from your doctor or your physician. So you are advised always to consult your doctor or physician before making any changes to your lifestyle. This is Sean, the host of What You Can Do About Taking Control of Your Own Health. Thank you, and remember that your doctor is not responsible for your health. You are. God bless you.